Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Anupama, Professor at Department of Economics, Punjabi University, Patiala. I am going to talk about the module Participatory Urban Governance and Civil Society from Population, Urbanization and Poverty. So students, we are going to discuss about the need and importance of participatory urban governance. We will also discuss about the various actors of participatory urban governance and their roles in enhancing the well-being of urban citizens. This module aims to examine the theoretical concepts of governance, urban governance, participatory governance, civil society organizations. The relevance of participatory governance in the era of globalization and rapid urbanization. Participatory urban governance and its main actors. Promoting participation and community development, municipal community partnership, and civic education. Urban governance is a dynamic process where competencies and responsibilities are continuously transformed or added to the task of local authorities and their partners in urban management. There is also a constant pressure on city managers to provide more efficient and effective responses to the needs of their cities and citizens. The twin challenges of urbanization and globalization present an unmistakable opportunity for city governments to fundamentally rethink how they function and how they intend to develop their localities. Dramatic waves of migration towards urban areas are also reaching unparalleled proportions. The challenge confronting city governments is more daunting than ever. In many parts of the world, the new globalizing economy is associated with seemingly increasing social inequalities, resulting in greater numbers of people living in poverty and increasingly higher levels of environmental degradation. In certain regions, it is also resulting in higher levels of unemployment, reinforcing criminal informality, social violence, and corruption. These trends put undue strain on already overextended infrastructure and service delivery capacity. In a climate of fiscal austerity, it further means that city governments must find solutions to these problems with fewer resources and more unfunded responsibilities. While the urban economies are spreading their tentacles at the global level, and national policy is now more focused upon creating infrastructure that invites more of the private capital, the needs of the poor segments in small urban areas are pushed to the corner. But for sustainable and inclusive growth of the cities, the real stakeholders must be involved in the process of framing and implementing the urban policies and plans. In this respect, the participatory approach to urban governance is considered to be a better option. In today's world, for inclusive growth of the cities, it is being felt that urban governance should take due care of effective collaborative planning in the decision-making process and its mechanisms, and implementation to coordinate distinctive efforts of the local government, civil society organizations, and the private sector. For understanding these processes, let us understand a few basic concepts related with this issue. The first concept is that of governance. To enable and facilitate the discussion, a key question to be posed at the outset is, what is governance? Conceptually, governance can be defined as a rule of the rulers, typically within a given set of rules. One might conclude that governance is the process by which the authority is conferred on rulers, by which they make the rules, and by which those rules are enforced and modified. Thus, understanding governance requires an identification of both the rulers and the rules, as well as the various processes by which they are selected, defined, and linked together with the society generally. It is also defined as the exercise of economic, political, and administrative authority to manage a country's affairs at all levels. It comprises mechanisms, processes, and institutions through which citizens and groups articulate their interests, exercise their legal rights, meet their obligations, and mediate their differences. Another concept to understand is urban governance. Taking cues from the above concepts of governance, the urban governance is fundamentally about the nature, quality, and purpose of the totality of relationships that link various institutional spheres, local, state, civil society, and the private sector in urban areas. These relationships span formally structured, regulated dimensions and informal ones. In this definition, the nature of relationships refer to the depths of interrelationships between different institutional spheres. That is, the level of engagement flowing between the state, civil society, and the private sector. The quality of relationship denotes features such as reciprocity, trust, and credibility. These characteristics are enhanced by dedicated mechanisms and opportunities to facilitate meaningful engagement. It also presumes distinctive and reasonably well-organized institutional spheres, that is, the civil society organizations, the business sector, and of course the local state itself. These spheres are distinctive yet profoundly interdependent. The purpose of the relationships denotes that relations are continuously deepened through collaborative action to achieve widely shared social goals and robust engagement on area of disagreement to work out the most efficient way of achieving higher order objectives. Urban governance is thus a dynamic process where competencies and responsibilities are continuously transformed or added to the task of local authorities and their partners in urban management. There is also constant pressure on city managers to provide more efficient and effective responses to the needs of their cities and citizens. So let us understand what is participatory governance. Participatory governance denotes forms of governance in which non-governmental actors, usually the citizens, are empowered to use the resources of the state to make decisions about matters that directly concern them. Thus, participatory governance can be described as a regulatory framework in which the task of running public affairs is not solely entrusted to government and the public administration, but involves cooperation between state institutions and civil society groups. There are certain features of participatory governance which can be enlisted as such. The first important feature of participatory governance is high levels of trust and reciprocity between urban actors, which are expressed through some form of political contracts which embodies political equality, tolerance, and inclusiveness. Another feature that demands substantial accountability in the various decision-making forums, especially the political and public realms, expressed through active citizen influence and oversight, responsive and responsible leaderships, adherence by all stakeholders to the rule of law, and vitally, transparency in decision-making processes. The next principle is the continuous reaffirmation and deepening of legitimate authority, which is enhanced by a clear recognition of respective roles, responsibilities, and the forms of effective coordination. And the participatory governance also needs a vibrant and active citizenry that engages with decision-making forums and processes through collective and individual means, irrespective of their gender, ethnicity, or wealth. Now let us understand what is civil society organization. According to the World Bank, the term civil society refers to the wide array of non-governmental and not-for-profit organizations that have a presence of public life, expressing the interests and value of their members or others, based on ethical, cultural, political, scientific, religious, or philanthropic considerations. The civil society organizations therefore refer to a wide array of organizations. These can be the community groups, the non-governmental organizations, the labor unions, indigenous groups, charitable organizations, faith-based organizations, professional associations, and foundations. CSOs have become important actors for delivery of social services and implementation of other development programs as a complement to government action, especially in regions where government presence is weak or the area of action is too wide. Thus, to summarize and interrelate all these concepts, it can be stated that urban governance is the sum of the many ways individuals and institutions, public and private, plan and manage the common affairs of the city. It is a continuing process through which conflicting or diverse interests may be accommodated and cooperative action can be taken. It includes the equal participation of the formal institution as well as informal arrangements and the social capital of the citizens. Now, we will analyze the relevance of participatory governance in era of globalization and rapid urbanization. Recent waves of globalization have led to economic restructuring in the cities, which are rapidly moving from the manufacturing sector to the knowledge-based service sector. The critical feature of the current wave of globalization is new lines and forms of stratification between places, people, and groups. In particular, it is manifested in much greater income inequalities between the knowledge workers who drive the new economy and the workers who continue to perform traditional jobs in manufacturing and are at the lower end of the service sector. Income inequality tends to manifest in spatial patterns of cities reflected in high-tech security enclaves for the wealthy and increasing insecurity for the poor urban citizens. Thus, globalization in urban economies has very unequal distributive effects. Under such circumstances, the municipalities or the local governments must go on basis of continuous and rigorous analysis about how external forces and processes are shaping local economies and social processes and how to minimize its adverse consequences and optimize the favorable ones. This can only be achieved effectively in close collaboration with organized business interest and civil society organizations, which advance the interest of the informal sector and home-based enterprises. Thus, globalization, along with rapid urbanization, drives home the fact that municipality can no longer afford to ignore the real urban processes in their cities. In the absence of effective new rules and regulations to circumscribe the new economies to ensure a balance between competitiveness and social equity, globalization and urbanization will continue to worsen inequalities between countries and cities and especially within them, that is, along race, caste, gender, or class lines. Thus, the burden to curb these problems is falling increasingly on the city governments. For effective management of these challenges, the urban governance will have to increasingly depend on quality of strategic leadership and management in concert with all urban stakeholders. The only viable path open to municipalities is to find new ways of working that draw on the resources, experience, and capacity of various actors in the city to complement the capacity of municipality. This points towards the increasing importance of participatory governance. The participatory urban governance implies a fundamentally new approach to municipal decisions, making processes and outcomes, organization, management, and relationship towards a formulation of integrated development approach, which would be bringing together sustainability, equitable economic development, political voice, social justice, and cultural freedom. It is an approach to urban management that is characterized by responsiveness, transparency, and participation. Ideally, participatory governance is good governance, and this good governance has 8 major characteristics. It is participatory, consensus-oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective, efficient, equitable, and inclusive, and follows the rule of law. It assures that corruption is minimized. The views of minorities are taken into account, and the voices of the most vulnerable in the society are heard in decision making. It is also responsive to the present and future needs of the society. These 8 characteristics are displayed in Figure 1. Since governance is the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented, an analysis of governance focuses on the formal and informal actors involved in decision making and implementing the decisions made, and the formal and informal structures that have been set in place to arrive at and implement the decision. Government is one of the actors in governance. Other actors involved in governance vary depending on the level of government that is under discussion. In the rural areas, for example, other actors may include influential landlords, association of peasant farmers, cooperatives, NGOs, research institutes, religious leaders, and others. The situation in urban areas is much more complex. Figure 2 provides the interconnections between actors involved in urban governance. All actors other than government may be grouped together as part of the civil society. If government, including the local agencies of national, state government, as well as the city government itself, constitutes one large piece of the picture, civil society constitutes the another. Thus, in participatory approach, in urban governance, at the city level, broader main actors become the municipal or local government, the business and the civil society organizations. Actually, the urban governance deals with the power relationships among the different stakeholders in cities. In this respect, it is important to know the relationships among the different stakeholders in overall process of urban governance. As a starting point, we will seek to explore all of these relations that municipalities maintain and how they can be structured to maximize the value of participatory governance. Figure 3 provides a graphic depiction of the vertical and horizontal governance relations that municipalities participate in. Vertically, municipalities engage upwards with higher tiers of government and various state agencies such as utility companies and parastatals, and downward with communities and households. Horizontally, municipalities engage with other municipalities, local agencies of national ministries, and parastatal civil society organizations and private sector. However, the most important relationship of municipalities is multidirectional. That is, it is with the citizenry in the public sphere within which they live, work, enjoy, and express themselves. The sum total and quality of these relations is at the core of understanding urban governance and how to improve it. Now, let us come to the next important links of business and civil society organizations, or say, the relationship between the production and distribution, whose main focus is to correct the imbalances and injustices in the distribution process in the urban areas. Traditionally, the government, civil society, and business are assumed to be having independently defined roles and spheres of action. Therefore, they used to be working independently within their own spheres, interacting with each other to a limited extent, and in order to influence each other for own purposes. But in a dynamic global cities, the paradigm of interaction of civil society, business, and government has changed with a greater degree of activity within each sector and with more integration across a sphered space. This has resulted in new frameworks of collaborations, partnerships, and innovations. The traditional roles of each of these three stakeholders have blurred, and rather we can easily see the emergence of hybrid organizations such as businesses with social purpose and civil society as market actors. The old and new paradigm of interrelations among the governments, civil society organizations, and businesses can be observed from Figure 4. The figure shows that in the traditional paradigm, the interaction among the three was sporadic and each one was working in its own sphere, while under the new paradigm, the increased role of civil society organizations in managing the operations of the city as well as business and the activities of each of these actors are overlapping each other, indicating greater interactions. Recently, the civil society organizations are being increasingly relied upon by the international agencies for funding of any rural or urban project. The World Bank, IMF, Asian Development Bank, and many other international institutions from which the national governments draw finances for their macro level goals now tend to pour in finances mainly through the civil society organizations, as the latter have a reputation of good information about the grassroots level realities, and so they are more effective agents to change. United Nations organizations is now increasingly involving the civil society organizations for achievement of the MDGs and other macroeconomic goals. The engagement of CSOs in various macro goals in different regions can be observed from Figure 5. The figure clearly shows that the removal of poverty and MDGs are the main spheres where CSOs are mainly relied upon by the UN. In more than 60% of the projects related with poverty sector, the civil society organizations of various countries are engaged. Similarly, in direct removal of poverty in about 50% of the projects in different regions, the CSOs are found to be engaged. The CSOs also play an important role in the internationally funded projects related with health, universalization of education, energy conservation, and finding new sources of energy. Thus, the CSOs are instrumental in mobilizing resources for the urban areas, which provides a great support in urban governance, particularly in the developing economies, where most of the urban issues revolves around the problem of housing, sanitation, health, education, and providing other basic amenities. The civil society organizations not only work at the grassroots level to mitigate these problems, but are also responsible for mobilizing resources for the same. This can be understood from Table 1. The table clearly shows that for conservation of natural resources, education, energy, health and social protection, water supply, and other municipal infrastructure resources, nearly 80 to 100% of the loans and grants have come through civil society organizations. Thus, the importance of these organizations in urban governance is a non-debatable issue. In this respect, the role of civil society organizations in participatory urban governance can be summarized in the following words. Promoting participation and community development. Participatory governance comes into its own in the quality of relationship between local governments and civil society organizations. In most countries, there has been a significant increase in a host of community-level organizations. Evidence from virtually every corner of the developing world suggests that municipalities can greatly enhance their effectiveness by tapping into rich resources and capacity of civil society organizations. However, a piecemeal, half-hearted approach is not likely to deliver much results. Municipalities need to invigorate this governance relation by opening up all dimensions of municipal government and decision making to the input of CSOs and the citizens. In context of limited fiscal resources and vast development needs, mobilizing community participation among poor settlements is particularly valuable. In this context, it often helps to understand that civil society is extremely diverse and characterized by different levels of power, capacity, and access to crucial information. Institutional mechanisms to facilitate engagement need to be structured to allow for such differences and additions. It is crucial to have special avenues for groups who are normally excluded or marginalized from engagement processes. In particular, it is the poor, and especially women and minority groups amongst the poor, who are left out in urban development processes. Municipal community partnerships. In most of the developing countries, when the wave of privatization gained its momentum, there was a strong swing towards private sector market-based solutions to a host of urban development problems. But this gave rise to new types of service delivery problems. For example, once water services are privatized, the services become too expensive for poor residents to afford, and they are simply cut off from the system. Also, broader political and developmental agendas towards achieving holistic development outcomes are difficult to implement because the new private sector service providers do not regard it as relevant to their business. When this happens, it is important to recognize that a variety of considerations must inform how municipal services should be organized to ensure efficient delivery, but also the attainment of a broader developmental vision. In this new wave of thinking, the potential and value of formalized partnerships between municipalities and community-based organizations have emerged as an innovative institution model. These are called municipal community partnerships, that is MCPs, as opposed to public-private partnerships, that is PPPs. MCPs are particularly suitable for alternative service delivery models in a context of vast needs, limited municipal capacity, and highly constrained fiscal resources. Essentially, an MCP is more formalized framework to systematize the distinctive voluntary contribution of CSOs. As compared to a PPP, the MCP will show greater organizational effectiveness, that is, greater managerial, financial, and administrative competence. It will show greater capacity to extend basic services to address areas of greatest need and poverty, and it will also ensure greater contribution to community empowerment and deepening of the democratic contract at the local level. Practically, an MCP means that municipalities can contract community-based organizations to deliver specific goods and services. For example, sanitation, refuse collection, roads and environmental maintenance, social housing, etc., as a part of an overall municipal strategy. Civic education. Civic and citizen education is a critical dimension of strengthening the horizontal governance relations with CSOs. The CSOs inform the general public as well as the policymakers about the mutual needs and expectations. There is a direct benefit to municipalities if citizens are informed and engaged with the work of the council. Firstly, it makes the elected representatives more sensitive to public opinion beyond the views of their respective political parties. Secondly, it makes officials more aware that they are meant to deliver a certain standard and volume of service or be able to explain why they are failing to do so. Thirdly, it promotes the identification of areas for collaboration between the municipality and various citizen groups. Fourthly, it deepens a broader culture of democratic participation, which will enhance the quality of social organizations within the civil society and stimulate a broader layer of future leaders. So students, let us summarize what we have learned in this module. To sum up, it can be stated that the urban governance is a dynamic phenomenon, particularly in the current scenario of rapidly globalizing and urbanizing economies. Under the present scenario of reducing role of government and increasing inequalities, following the strategy of participatory governance is the best strategy, as it takes due care of all the stakeholders, and it is particularly more beneficial in case of increasing responsibilities of the local governments along with diminishing fiscal resources. In this respect, the role of the civil society organizations assumes greater importance, as they are not only the direct actors to perform the functions of mitigating the inequalities and other related problems in urban areas, but also responsible for mobilizing resources from national as well as international development funding agencies. The participatory governance with increased role of the civil society organizations is considered to be much better than the public-private partnerships, as in latter arrangement, the interest of the private sector is taken care of, while in the former arrangement, the interest of the general public, particularly the poor and the needy, is at the center point. And of course, a good governance should be mitigating the inequalities rather than accentuating it. That's all with today's lecture. I hope you must have enjoyed this lecture. Thank you.